Welcome, everybody. The last few weeks have seen more major stories and significant changes to a presidential campaign in such a short period of time. Certainly more than any recent election in decades that I can recall. And this is continuing to move very, very quickly. And I know that the news I'm about to give you is going to be frustrating to some in my audience. Some of you are going to be angry, while I know many of you also are happy from the emails that I've received. As the discussion about whether there will be an open convention for the Democratic Party in a few weeks in Chicago, Illinois, has been growing, who would be the possible replacements to Joe Biden? What will their campaign be like to delegates? As all of that was building, it is functionally over. Now, hold on. I'll tell you the whole story. It is functionally over as Kamala Harris has secured enough delegates for the nomination. Reportedly coming as a surprise to the vice president on Sunday, when President Biden announced he would not seek re-election. She was reportedly not notified more than just minutes in advance. 48 hours later, not even really, more like 36, because this came last night, she has secured the delegates for the nomination, and some are saying we can now close the door on who will be Joe Biden's replacement. Others saying, no, we cannot. We will fight for the nomination. It should be someone else. Now, often the someone else is not even somebody who's remotely viable, and we will get to that in a moment. But let's talk about what happened. A reasonable question, of course, is how could it be over if the delegates haven't yet voted at the DNC? And that is a very good question. No delegates have voted, but with regard to verbal commitments, Kamala Harris has secured the number she needs. Reuters reports Vice President Kamala Harris will campaign in Wisconsin today after securing enough Democratic delegate support to clear a path to the nomination. Harris has emerged as the Democratic candidate after President Biden abandoned the re-election campaign. Less than 36 hours after Biden endorsed Harris, she secured the nomination Monday night by winning the pledged support of a majority of the party's delegates who will determine the nomination, the campaign said. Kamala Harris putting out a statement, which I will read to you in a moment. An unofficial survey of delegates by the Associated Press shows Harris with more than 2,500 delegates, well over the 1976 needed to win. Here's a critical line. Delegates could still technically change their minds, but nobody else received any votes in the AP survey. 54 delegates were undecided. Now, I know that there are people who are furious about this. I was getting text messages Sunday, Monday, one this morning from other hosts and different strategists and, people I've met over the years, most saying it seems as though this is over, and some saying this can't be over. We must demand a process. Now, here's the thing that makes this a more complicated situation. To demand a process can mean many different things. And of course, if other candidates put their names forward and lobby delegates and say, choose me instead.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Right. I'm doing everything right. Please select me at the DNC. I think that that's all great. I'm supportive of that. We also can't strong arm delegates into choosing someone else when the someone else isn't even anybody clear. It's critical to understand that nobody at this point, in a serious manner, and I know we've got these third party candidates who are sometimes on the fringes of the Democratic Party, but they're not running as Democrats, but might they? We don't actually have any serious challenge from inside the Democratic Party to Kamala Harris right now. And so it would be a very different scenario if we right now had a 2-way, 3-way, 4-way, 5-way race where it's Kamala Harris and maybe it's Andy Beshear, and imagine that Pete Buttigieg came forward or Hillary Clinton came back and said, pick me, or the Republican dream of Michelle Obama. Or if you had announced challenges to Kamala Harris and if you had money coming into someone other than Kamala Harris, you would have a much more likely scenario of a so-called open convention with a contested nomination. We just don't have that right now. Now, you can point to the situation and say it was manipulated in order to prevent that. And of course, manipulation is a term that has some connotations attached to it. But yes, Joe Biden said, I endorse Kamala. Kamala Harris said, I'm running. Donors said, we like it, and poured in record money, which I'll talk about in a moment. And that's where we are right now. So while I am absolutely on the side of let everyone who wants this come forward, let them lobby the delegates, let there be a discussion at the convention if indeed there is disagreement. I don't think that there is any way to force that. And in fact, it's almost seeming, given the degree to which and the energy which has been displayed behind Kamala Harris saying, I'll do it, and the money pouring in and the enthusiasm, it actually seems like it would be more forced at this point to create some kind of contested situation that simply doesn't exist. And I know a lot of people won't like that. They'll say, wait, the Kamala Harris manipulated the situation too, because she said she's considering as VP some of the people who might run against her. Yeah, it's called politics. I mean, that's kind of the way this thing works. And it seems to me that the priority now that record money is pouring into Kamala Harris's campaign is let's figure out how to make her the next president rather than Donald Trump, because it's seeming like those are the two options. I know that there are people who are still saying, I would rather it be Gretchen Whitmer. It doesn't seem Gretchen Whitmer's doing it. First, before any of this, you've got to convince Gretchen Whitmer to say I'd be interested. And it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. Now, Kamala Harris putting out a statement where she says, when I announced my campaign for president, I said I intended to go out and earn this nomination. Tonight, I'm proud to have secured the broad support needed to become our party's nominee. And as a daughter of California, I'm proud that my home state's delegation helped put our campaign over the top. I look forward to formally accepting the nomination soon. I'm grateful to President Biden and everyone in the Democratic Party who has already put their faith in me, and I look forward to taking our case directly to the American people. This election will present a clear choice between two different visions. Trump wants to take our country back to a time before many of us had full freedoms and equal rights. I believe in a future that strengthens our democracy, protects reproductive freedom, and ensures every person has the opportunity to not just get by, but to get ahead. Over the next few months, I'll be traveling, talking to Americans, etc., all to defeat Donald Trump. This is where we are. And while I am disgusted by the campaign finance status quo in the United States, it cannot be ignored that there is record money pouring into Kamala Harris's campaign. And I want to talk about that next.